4, 3, 2. And welcome back, my friends. Just like that, we're in it. Now, I don't know who exactly I'm speaking with, but if you enjoyed that intro, I'm glad I made your mood a little happy because the video's about to get a little crazy. Not crazy as in a sense of wild, but what I have is an amazing story of one man's survival with his two friends. Unfortunately, we'll get into the rest. But this one man's survival on top of a snowy mountain. And it's just crazy, the twists, the turns. It's not a long story. I'm just going to read the website. It's off backpack.com. I'm going to read the story, pretty much how it goes, and put through what I can. It's a good listen if you guys want to hear a pretty interesting story. Let's get into it. On Mount Foraker. Stunned by the loss of his friends, a stranded climber struggles down one of Alaska's toughest peaks. Here we go. Now, disaster struck for Tom Walter, Rick Kellogg, and Colby Combs. On a steep snow climb up Alaska's 17,240-foot Mount Foraker, nearly finished with their new variation on the Pink Panther route. The trio topped out on 1,000-foot cliff band just as the storm broke. With winds rising, visibility plummeting, they abandoned their summit plans. The escape route wouldn't be a picnic. They had to gain the spur 1,200 feet above them, traverse left, and descend the southeast bridge. Not easy to do. It's tough in its own right. The ramp was easy climbing, but the porous ice was too hard for snow pickets. Too soft for ice screws. You could easily fall down. That would be so horrible. Unprotected, the men moved quickly up the 50-degree slope, tied together and climbing simultaneously. As they ascended, Coombs, who now owns Alaska Mountaineering School in Talkeetna, stared up at the line running to his friend Tom. Then the rope suddenly went slack. Coombs looked up, and just as the avalanche hit, quote, I remember sliding really fast, trying to self-arrest, then hitting something and going airborne. That's when I passed out. Coombs came to hanging from his rope, racked with pain, deeply chilled, his back and mittens gone. It was morning. He's been dangling for at least 6 hours near the top of a rock buttress, 800 feet below where the slide had struck. Walter hung on the other end of the line, counterweighing Coombs. The rope to Kellogg, his longtime best friend, ran limply over the brink. Walter was dead. His face, snow-covered mask. It was a blessing in some ways, not seeing his face, says Coombs. It allowed me to separate myself a bit. Coombs was in bad shape. His ankle and his scapula were broken. His neck would not twist, and it was excruciatingly painful to recline or sit up. And he's dizzy from a concussion. He scrambled to the small edge, wiggled his way inside Walter's sleeping bag, and he passed out, which I don't think that's the right thing you do when you're concussed, fall asleep. I don't think that's good. When he awoke, which is very lucky, I think the snow helped a lot. Coombs realized the helmet he had been wearing was now shattered. He rappelled down the mountain to find Kellogg, who has been dead, and he wound up in the other rope. It took nearly 36 hours for him to assemble all the gear, cook some food, and melt snow just to drink. Which, I guess I'd rather be in a frozen tundra than in the middle of the lake. Well, in the middle of the ocean, salt water. Now he's alone and desperate on a technical ice face. He traversed toward the southeast ridge, his only escape. He could barely use his fractured foot, but he had to focus on the next step. Quoted from him, I remember thinking, I don't care if my foot falls off, he says. I had to get into an unstoppable mentality. Coombs also drew his faith from God. For quote from him, this is in his toughest times, regardless of religion. For anyone who's religious, being able to lean on something bigger than you in that moment is helpful. The descent took 6 days of dead ends, frustration, splintered bone agony. Coombs fell and made an excruciating self-arrest. His frayed rope kept snagging on rocks. When a steep snowfield settled beneath him, the exhausted climber inched back up and around the hair trigger avalanche slope, finally reaching the Kahilota Glacier. He zombie walked across its crevice fields and entered the airstrip camp. Search planes spotted Tom Walter's ice tool, planted only 100 feet from the ridgetop and safety. Coombs spent 3 months in a wheelchair and another 3 on crutches. Neither Kellogg nor Walter were ever found again. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a story of Colby Coombs. Very strong-willed, hard-fighting man. I tried to make it a little interesting, and the editing, I kind of wasted my money. I thought it was going to be a lot more like clips I could use. Really couldn't, so I had to use a lot of Google images on stock, and it's all right though. I'll get into different styles of video where it'll be fine. But for now, little interesting story. You just listen to it while you're doing something else, scrolling on Facebook or something. You never know. Whatever makes you happy. But Boba Fett is out. Love you guys. Appreciate you. You know the drill. Stay fat and sexy.